Do you ever wonder how successful entrepreneurs built their businesses from scratch? Are you unsure if starting a business is for you? Well, tune in as we discuss how successful entrepreneurs transformed their ideas into reality. Welcome back to From Zero to Revenue with your host, Chris Yap.
Welcome to the show, From Zero to Revenue, the show that features the journey of successful entrepreneurs from around the world. I'm your host, Chris Yap. I'd like to thank our sponsor, GabTech Global, your staff augmentation partner for world-class resources. If you want to hire remote professionals and trying to save money and hire faster, visit their website at gabtechglobal.com. Man, I'm honored to have you here in the show today. You know, this guy's business has been growing 100%, man, year after year over the last few years, helping people bring out the youth in them by providing the best hobby supplies at the best value to artists while actually helping people with mental health issues, like manage their situation. Man, I know you're super busy, but you're here today. I'm honored. Welcome to the show, man.
Glad to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So we've got here Jason Craze of Monument Hobbies. Tell us a little bit about yourself, the company, your mission.
Oh boy. So Monument Hobbies is a company that I started with my partner Jennifer in 2016. Our goal was really, it's funny as so many of these endeavors go, our goal was just to provide a living for ourselves as two individuals with a dog,
Yes.
and very we're pretty balanced. We don't have a high output of spend and things like that, but we have a love for what we do. So the hobby that I've done since a child of painting models and miniature figurines and sculptures has just always stayed with me.
Right.
And, looking back, it's kind of a shame that I waited until, my late 40s to really start it as a business endeavor. But it was probably the right time, as going through the rest of my life and learning business and learning the ins and outs and rights and wrongs and the things that you have to have the experience with. It's probably better that I have all of that traction leading to now rather than trying to do something I loved way back when I was 27,
Right.
But so we started the business as a way to be a creative outlet for ourselves. And it was really focused on helping people learn how to bring that type of creativity into their own lives, learning how to paint, learning how to take yourself from that person who doesn't know how to draw a stick figure, as many of us say, and then actually enjoy the getaway that art and creativity can provide.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, Jason, what really fascinates me about you is that you're a creative genius. You're very analytical. You're an amazing problem solver, and you're amazing with finance, right? How are you able to kind of develop these skills and have that appetite and do them all at the same time? It's just usually you've got the creative guy, then you've got another guy who's just analytical, but you're like a combination of three different schools of like skill set, and it just really fascinates me.
Thank you for that, by the way, and it's always been one of those things that has been hard to describe because people notice it fairly quickly. As a kid, I was always drawing and being creative, and I could go away in my own head and play with blocks and Legos and everything and not even care that the world existed for hours and hours. My parents and grandparents were always very surprised. I was an easy child because I took care of myself.
Yeah.
Just go get creative and pretend I was on another planet and build crazy stuff. But then when it got time to go through all of my higher education, I didn't want to focus on the creative stuff, and that kind of floored my family. They was like, "Oh, are you going to go to college?" I was like, "Yeah, what are you going to take? Computer science." And they were like, "I don't understand. Why aren't you pursuing your art?" And I was like, "Well, art's for fun." That's the way I always thought about it.
Sure.
My art, my creativity was what was my personal space, I guess we'd say. And so from a very young age, I looked at what is going to be the thing I do for maybe I wasn't saying for a job, But I was like, what's the real thing I'm going to do? And that would allow me to continue to have my art as my kind of quiet place where I get the world out of my head. And so for years, that's the way I treated it. And it would start to seep in because even as I got into engineering and product development and, the more I look at financial responsibility, it's always the creative solutions that I'm led to or that I'm drawn to the most as I go through the problem solving process. And I think that it allows me to take the thing I love in my kind of quiet place and bring it to the forefront when it's needed and have unique approaches to things that are generally just written in books. You can read a business book that says, here's how to run your business and be a millionaire.
Right.
When we all know that can lay a very good foundation for you, but you need to have creativity outside of that knowledge to be able to manipulate it in your own situation. And so that's kind of how I've always used it. But, that being said, I also, I've always sat and drawn doodles and kept the creativity going and, worked with good people. I think part of my ability to do all of these things is having had great mentors through all the parts of business that I've been in, where I've been able to watch other creative people apply themselves in meaningful ways that were not necessarily creative on the outside. Sometimes you look at somebody and you're like, I bet they're really dull. I wouldn't want to go have dinner with this person because, they're like your accountant or your finance guy. And then you get out with them and you're like, oh, you're really cool.
Yeah.
How do you do that? How do you wear this face that's very stoic and down to business all the time and then go out and do this? And then I started thinking, I go, well, I kind of do the same thing. It's like I'm here to do what we're here to do. Like, do we have a problem? Let's fix it. Do we need to build something? Let's build it. And then you go home and you let your hair down and you do your fun stuff. And I guess that's why this is so great for me because now I get to pull them together, right? It's for the first time I'm like, hey, I get to do it all at once.
Well, I also understand that, prior to establishing and growing Monument Hobbies, you've had other businesses. Like I understand you did, you were building your own motorcycles. You were in the audio visual world, multimedia stuff. How did that kind of develop as far as, your journey? Because you've been an entrepreneur for the longest time. How did that kind of develop, whether it's passion, is it, you're trying to solve a problem? What kind of got you into those three or at least three different ventures?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think, its fundamental state, I think it's like as a kid, I didn't like being told what to do, right? I think a lot of us as entrepreneurs kind of share that. It's not that I don't want to learn from you. It's not that I don't want to share an experience with someone else, but I don't just want to be told what the schedule is and go do the schedule. Right. Because I was always trying to find ways to manipulate the schedule to make it more efficient or whatever. And so it just always led me on a different path. I didn't really have, I had a high school job, as we all do, and a job during college to pay some bills and to have a car. And after that, I was like, what can I do on my own? How can I do what these people are doing? So I had been, I'd been in the music world. I had played in bands and saw some success at a young age in that, but I wasn't really a good team player in the bands because, again, I always had higher aspirations. I was like, let's do this. And everybody else was like, nah, we're fine. We'll just play on Fridays, and I want to do more. So I started a business that built recording studios. And I looked at the business side of music more and eventually had a record label and worked with Universal Records and Joan Jett and did some really fun stuff. Had some really great experiences and some really bad experiences in the music industry. But it was always, I think, trying to find a path that allowed my need for learning to always be fulfilled, while at the same time being able to find some sort of personal satisfaction in my output. Does that make sense? Yeah. Because it's I want to have the world feed me and I want to feed the world. Sure. Right? So I want to take in as much as I can and then actually utilize what I've learned and generate output. Sure. And so that, and I think that the problem with that for me in particular is that my need to learn is so voracious in some situations that it defocuses me on whatever I've chosen as my path at the time. Leading up to the formation of Monument Hobbies, the reason I've done these things, I had a company that built recording studios. We sold that in 1997. And then I was like, well, I'm done. I don't want to do this anymore.
Right.
You know, and so then I went off and worked with some of the manufacturers that were partners with my company while I was building it, and had fun engineering and developing products for companies that had way more resources than I had ever had.
Right.
So it gave me a new playground.
Mm-hmm.
I could learn things and come up with solutions that I would have never been able to pursue with my smaller business inside the economy of a larger scope.
Sure.
And so I learned beyond my expectations in that environment, because I just went in thinking, oh, this will be cool.
Yeah.
And then you show up and you're like, oh, like this is different cool.
Yeah.
You know, because this is like, wow, the resources, while not limitless, are giving you a totally new potential.
Right.
And so I think at every level that you climb as an entrepreneur or someone who has that entrepreneurial spirit, I think you wind up in a situation where you find new tools at your disposal. And if you pursue using those tools in a way that benefits both you and your surroundings, the people you're either working for or building product for or whatever, then you're always going to find yourself climbing, because you'll run out of the knowledge on that particular resource. You'll be like, okay, I've been here, I've seen this, I've done it. So how can I now leverage it to the next level? For some, it's making that next million.
Right.
For some, it's I want to diversify my company. For some like me, it's been change industries. I want to go build motorcycles.
Right.
And people are like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, you've been in electronics and had a great career in electronics and developing electronics. I was able to get as a co-creator on a bunch of patents, and I was like, I don't have the right to be here doing this, but it was fun. And then I was like, yeah, well, okay, well, I've done it. What else am I going to do? You know, I don't want to. I mean, I could create more things, but let's go create something that lets me learn. And so, you know, I go and I knew how to weld and all that. So you build motorcycles because of course you do. And and it's just been fun. I always want to be challenged, I think, is the core of it.
And so when people ask me what is it about entrepreneurship I like the most, and I'm kind of riding on what you just said here, I tell them it's the freedom, right?
Yeah.
And it to me, how you describe your adventure in those different stints is that you had that itch to learn, to build, or do something, but entrepreneurship gives you that freedom. What would you say about that? You know, or what is it really about entrepreneurship that attracted you? I kind of assume it was the freedom, but what is it about entrepreneurship that really attracted you the most?
I think that the freedom you speak about is the leading factor.
Sure.
It's the freedom to do as you choose.
Yes.
I think that comes as a double-edged sword, because having that freedom also requires a higher level of responsibility than I know I was capable of understanding at the beginning. Because that freedom to do whatever you want to do means you have to be responsible enough to choose better along that path.
Right.
Because you don't have a company to choose for you. You don't have an HR department to make sure that you have the right 401k plan. You have to go out and make the right decision to make some money.
Yeah.
And so that was daunting at first. I sold my first company in '97, as I said, because I was running into a ceiling where I wasn't comfortable as an entrepreneur. I knew how to develop and to design and to sell, but I didn't know how to scale. I didn't know how to manage people at a level I needed to grow and to scale. So all the things that came with that freedom wound up being the thing that really beat me up. And so that would be my first endeavor, really, I would say, in a business sense, that I was like, oh, I got to back off and learn more. And so I went to work for like I said, some of the partners that I had that were manufacturers of components I would design and build into recording studios. And I went and worked for them. And I don't know if at the time I said to myself, hey, I'm going to go learn from them so I can do this better the next time. That wasn't the goal. I think the goal was, honestly, the goal at the time was, I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be the guy that everybody else relies on. I want to go have a job.
Okay.
And so, I think that while the entrepreneurial spirit is there for the freedom, it's also good to understand that it's okay to go learn under a different environment. Like I said, I went back to work. I got a job. I worked Monday through Friday, and I went home on the weekends and had fun on the weekends and didn't think about my job.
Yeah.
And it was a relief at first after doing that for a while, but then the freedom need came back.
Yes, the itch.
Right. And that's where I really started to put my brain to work, I think, in figuring out what made me tick. I think as entrepreneurs, a lot of times we look at the world and the people we want to service or the people that we want to build things for, the ideas we have, as not necessarily always being self-serving, right, but outward a lot.
Right.
There's obviously a self-serving, the need for freedom and the need to, I'm better, I want to do what I want to do. Obviously, that's ego and selfishness to some extent. But I think there's also a thing that we look at where we just want to provide. We want to take our ideas and give them out to the world. And you got to find yourself before that becomes powerful.
Yeah.
You have to know who you are and be confident, love the person in the mirror, so that when you do hit those struggles, you don't fold.
Yeah.
Because I folded in my first endeavor. We were doing great.
Yeah.
And when the first time I got a phone call, literally the first time I got a phone call where somebody said, hey, you guys are doing great. You want to sell? I was like, yes. And I shouldn't have done that.
Right.
Looking back.
Yeah,
Today me looks back and says, you were stupid. But then me,
at that time,
then me was elated.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden I was like, I can get rid of some of this pressure. Somebody's going to recognize that what I've done has some value and they're going to give me money for it.
Yeah.
Oh, heck yeah.
Especially at the young age.
Oh yeah, I was 27. I'm 27 years old. I'm like, yes. I felt like I was having a midlife crisis at 27, because I had run this business to the point to where, and we're talking about a business that had just hit like $1.2 million in gross revenue.
Right.
And so it was large, but not large. We know that at that level, it feels large, but in reality, it's able to crumble almost immediately. And so I was having all of those stresses that so many of us are familiar with, where it's like, how do you get from here to there? Because what I did to get here doesn't work anymore.
Right.
It's not that the people I had didn't work. We had I think 11 employees, 12 employees. One of them was my mother. So, my mother worked and ran my office. So, and love her to death, but it was a stress to have all that as my responsibility. And I just wasn't ready for it. And so I think the best thing for me was to walk away, learn about me, spend some time figuring out what I was really looking for in the career environment and what I wanted to do with all this need for freedom.
Right.
That's the toughest thing.
No.
How do you turn it into something beneficial, not only for the world that you're trying to build with your ideas, but for you? Right. So at the end of the day, you're not tired of doing it, because I lost the love of these things like music and electronics and to some extent even motorcycles as I did those businesses, because I wasn't prepared to follow through with 100% of the responsibility of taking that freedom. And so I had to almost sacrifice 3 of my loves to get to where I could actually do it right for this one. And now it's so crazy.
Right.
Chris, I've now for 8 years at the growth we've had, and there's not a single day where I go home and go, could somebody please buy this for me? I go home and I think about, okay, tomorrow I've got this crazy idea. I wonder if it's going to work.
Yeah.
And we do it. And so for 8 years, crazy ideas keep working. But I think it's only because of that chase of freedom and finally discovering what it meant. Yeah. Because I think that, one of the big things is that as a young entrepreneur or as a new entrepreneur, I don't know that age has anything to do with it, but as you develop your stride, let's say, or your pacing for getting your ideas out there, you'll learn. You don't know, there's no book, there's nothing you can read that supplies you with enough tools to dive into it for the first time and really understand what success is going to mean for you. You have to constantly evaluate that and talk to yourself on a daily basis.
Yeah. What
am I doing? What's working? How do I feel about it? And if you can't answer those questions honestly, or if you forget to ask them, because I forgot to ask myself, how do I feel about this? Until it got to the point where it's like, this sucks. I'm tired of this. Right. I need, because you get mad at your people, you get mad at the situation. You're like, oh my gosh, nobody can do the right thing. Why am I always having to take care of it? Yada, 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 yada. Yeah. And we've all been there.
Oh yeah.
And sometimes we fold.
This morning.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes we fold. I folded. Yeah. But then what I did is, like I said, you go and you learn more about yourself, I think is the important thing. Because we always gain knowledge on, okay, I can read a book on how to be a better boss, how to manage people successfully, how to do your financials correctly, how to hire a CFO, whatever, right? You can go get all that information, and the mechanics of it can be lodged in your brain to say, okay, step 2, step 3, step 4. But if you never stare at yourself and say, am I doing what I love?
Yeah.
Am I getting back from this thing that I say, yes, I love it? Am I getting back from it what I need personally? Whether that be income or just stability at the end of the day, mental stability at the end of the day. You just need to be able to ask those hard questions and answer them truthfully and know what to do when they aren't the right answers or when they aren't the answers you want.
Dude, there's so much to extrapolate from everything you said, but you know what's in my head right now is that so you've been an employee
Oh yeah.
and you've been an entrepreneur. I have a lot of friends who are in that 8 to 5 grind work, right? Wanting to become a business owner because they think it's sexy.
The Holy Land.
It's a holy land, but
Angels sing and
what would
bank
you say
accounts get
about
bigger.
that? What would you say about that? I mean, is entrepreneurship for everyone? I mean, I kind of know the answer there, but I get a lot of these questions. This question a lot. I mean, what's your take on that?
Well, I definitely understand the frustration because I deal with it. And heck, I have employees that come and talk to me that say, hey, I want to make sure that I'm on a path that doesn't just make this a job. And I think that the people you want in your business need to think that way. Yeah. You want people that are not happy just punching a clock.
Absolutely.
Right? So how do you manage that? And, there's a lot of different ways because there's a lot of different people, a lot of different ways that people think. To start with, is entrepreneurship for everybody? I would say that it is open to everybody. I know that not everybody can do it.
100%.
I don't know if that's the best way to say that, but I know that I've seen it enough, and I know that
it's the truth, though.
Right, and I think it goes back to what I was saying: is that your honesty with yourself is the key. And sometimes the honesty says, like when I sold my first business, the honesty was that I don't want to do this right now.
Right.
And that was being deadly honest. I didn't like the answer. Right. I was not good at it. So I was that kid that didn't want to work for anybody. It's like, if this guy can do it, I can do it better. Right. I've worked for companies that are doing this and they're not near as good as I could be. So I went out and started it on my own, saw some success and folded. Right. Because I didn't know how to do all the other stuff. And when I learned about the other stuff, like accounting and bill collection, ARAP, all the nonsense that you have to do as a business owner, it's like, well, guess what? I don't like any of that.
Right. Yeah.
I like doing the fun stuff.
Yeah.
And so I think a lot of people get stuck in that. I can do this, but what you can do is the fun part. And that, of course, is what we love.
Yeah.
But work comes with all of the other dirty, ugly stuff.
Right.
And so you need to study that if you want entrepreneurship to be the land that is kind of the promised part of it, then you need to study all of that. And again, be honest and say, okay, if I don't like those things, then I need to spend some time maybe finding a partner who does like those things. Because there are people out there that love that stuff.
Yeah, 100%.
There's people out there that would live for AP and AR, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so if you can find that person, but then of course that costs you the partnership, right? And so if you're early on, so there's a lot of questions I have to answer. I mentor some people where these are the conversations we have more than not. Because they're like me, they're creatives. They're like, yeah, but I don't ever want to know if I was profitable on a thing. And I was like, well, that's a problem. You have to, and so
it's not a business, it's a hobby then.
Right. Well, it's like if you're going to learn skydiving, you probably want to know as much as you can about jumping out of a plane before you just go do it.
Exactly.
But I know people that don't. They just go hike the gear on and jump.
Yep.
Great. You can do that in entrepreneurship because it gives you that freedom. But what you might find is after doing it for a couple of times, you find out certain nuances about it that you weren't prepped for. The ugly truth of your chute not opening at the right time and you having to go through the stress of getting to your reserve chute. And then by the time you hit the ground, maybe you sprain something. It's a little harder than you thought it was. And now it's not pretty. You found the ugly part of skydiving, and it could get lots uglier.
Yes.
And so maybe that opens it up to you that, I don't know that I'm prepped for this. Right. So something that you love kind of takes a back seat. And I think the biggest thing is that that's okay. I think that what I find most with people, going back to your original question, is entrepreneurship for everyone. I think it can be, like I said, I think that a lot of people give up. And maybe they give up too soon. I don't like using that because it seems judgmental. But I think people will give up when they hit that first hardship or that first big roadblock.
Right.
And I think that, again, it's like most things, it's okay to quit because quitting, and I know this is going to be controversial, but in my opinion, my definition, quitting is a very proactive thing. If you quit, you have to make a determination that this is not right for me, I quit right now. It doesn't mean you can't come back to it.
Right.
But you need to know when to throw in the towel and know that I have to go build these skills. I have to go talk to myself. I got to take some time off and come back to it. And don't let the failure be something that keeps you from striving for that freedom, that business freedom, that creative freedom, and all of that.
No, absolutely. And it obviously that takes a lot of skills. Man, I see you as a think tank. Like, dude, you've got...
I'm just a good talker. I just love to talk.
We're going to add that in your repertoire of skills. But, just to give some context for our listeners here. So you and I have been in we're both in the EO entrepreneurs organization.
Yeah.
So obviously I know you. I'd say I know you pretty well already.
Yeah, in a short
like,
time. We've got it really close.
in a short amount of time, and I really see you as, man, you're just a think tank. Like, I think if you can replicate yourself,
The world does not need more of it. Nobody needs more of Jason Craze.
Well,
one
but the
enough.
thing is,
Ask Jennifer; she'll tell you one is enough.
well, the thing is, I look at the problem solving part, and when you look into things and analyze things, it comes from a view of rational and emotion, which is, it's a strange combination. Right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say strange, but it's a unique combination. And so with that, I'm really curious, like, what was your aha moment when you thought of Monument Hobbies? Like, what was that aha moment?
Oh boy. I had always wanted through my whole life to find a way to make my creative endeavors before I knew the term passion project. I wanted to make sure that at some point in time, my creative endeavors could be what became my day to day, my business. Whether I was working for somebody, I thought about going into video games. I had a job offer from Electronic Arts to do some big stuff for them. I was really excited when I was in California. Didn't take it. I was afraid of working for somebody in creative because, again, I had learned through the years that I didn't want, it's that statement that the worst thing in life is not to lose the thing you love,
right?
But it's to have the thing you love become the thing you hate. Okay? Because you can lose a thing that you love, but you can regain what you lose. Once you've devolved that love into hatred, now you've lost a piece of you. And learning that was a pivotal moment for me because it said I need to do more on my own side to make sure that these things that I love are managed, right? It's that logic and emotion working together because you can manage your emotions, but you need to do it in a way that still allows them to thrive. You can't lock them down. I come from a Southern family where a bunch of the men just lock their emotions down, and so I didn't want to be that, but I didn't want to let them lead the way either. I don't want to make just knee-jerk, reactive decisions all the time. So you have to be able to think about it, but be honest about how you feel. Again, I think that's really the key. And then Monument came about because of that, because at some point in time, I was like, I've been afraid to let my creativity, because of these past experiences, I had artificially locked my creativity away, saying, no, I refuse to let it out for the world because if it fails, I'll hate it. And then I won't have a place to go to quiet my brain. I won't be able to go sit and paint. I won't be able to go sit and play music because I hate it now. And with music that happened. I haven't played music. I haven't picked up a guitar and played music in earnest for over 20 years.
Oh, wow.
And I played prolifically. And because of the music business and the effects that it had on me, my bad decisions, the things that happened in that world that were not always because of me, led me to just hate it. So now me listening to music is an oddity, and that was such a big part of my life. And so that was really a learning point. So then I found out in the early 2010s, I guess, I was like, I'm going to pursue my creativity. I'm a grown man. I can take care of myself, and I can guarantee myself that I'm going to love what I do.
And you've got more skills too.
Yeah, I've learned more.
Yeah,
and it takes some inward conversation again. I hate to keep saying it that way, but you really need to talk to the person in the mirror and sometimes you just reflect. Hey, what did I learn today? I don't do it daily. I'm not going to tell you that at 365 days I ask the guy in the mirror, hey, what did you learn today? No, I'm not going to. But I do reflect, quarterly, annually back and say, man, this year was crazy. Think of all the cool stuff we did. And then really reflect on, I have new tools. And so at some point in time, I said to myself, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use my creativity as a educational device. I had never done that. I always said that my problem solving was all about creating products, creating things that people could purchase. Because when we think about it, that's really the way the world works. You got products and you have services. And I never really thought of creatives as being services. You made art, you sold art. Whether it was motorcycles or electronics or whatever. You came up with cool designs for stuff and you sold it to people. And then I said, well, let's take a different stance on this. There's a lot of people teaching out there. And I looked at the Bob Ross model and I said, you know what? Bob Ross sat on PBS and didn't get paid a cent for all those episodes. He just painted and did what he loved. And then he made products so that people who also wanted to share in his love of art could buy products that they knew were tried and tested by a person that they respected using them. And so kind of unconsciously, I just started teaching people how to paint using other products. And it kind of evolved into that. It didn't start as hey, I want to make products. It came as I want to teach people how to enjoy and find quiet space in their life. And you mentioned mental health. I don't know that was at the forefront, but it very quickly became apparent that people resort to these creative endeavors to quiet the brain, to get away from the world, to take an hour away from the kids and the family when everybody's gone to bed, to just do something for yourself, something that focuses you, gets you ready to go to sleep, and you can sleep all through the night. Everybody's story is different. And so I wanted to be part of that. I said, you know what, if my creativity is going to live, let's let it live like that. And so I just started teaching people how to paint. And we garnered a huge community of people who tuned in to learn how to paint. And we have done it starting in 2016. We did a live show. Back then we did 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. I treated it like a job. Painted for 8 hours. Don't know how I did it. Couldn't do it today. But we did, and those people started coming along, and then it evolved into, hey, I saw you do this trick with your paintbrush. What was that? And I said, I do this because I can't find a brush I like, so I alter it like this. They're like, oh, you should make one. And I was like, duh. And so I did. Yeah. And everybody bought them. Right. And bought them out, sold them out. Couldn't sell it, couldn't make enough. And so that just evolved into everything that we do now. Our colors for our paints and the whole nine. The whole company is built off of educating people how to enjoy their creative endeavors. And then we just made products that fit the way we did our creative stuff. And people were just the same kind of crazy.
Wow. What's in one of our conversations, this kind of led one thing to another, like, coming up with the paintbrush. What was the vision when you started it? Like, is there a specific? I know you did it to kind of get that creative juice out, right? Was there a specific problem too that you're trying to solve, or that kind of came about later as an effect? Like you mentioned, which is to me it's a big deal. Managing mental health. In my family, we've got those situations, and they've got their own ways to manage them, whether it's going to the gym, art. But my youngest, which by the way, man, he loved the paint.
Oh, good.
Yeah, he started using it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, so we're gonna start printing actually those.
I was gonna say there's a whole world.
There's a whole world.
Pandora's box you've opened up.
It's like he is in his zone,
that's good.
Right? So it's the way I see it. It's not a problem that we're trying to solve for him, but we're able now. He's got another level to unleash. Yeah. That something that giant in him, But in this business, or with Monument Hobbies, is there a specific problem that you're trying to solve, or what are you seeing that's actually being solved by your business right now?
I think for us, there's many layers to that to peel back, because we make better products, yes. Right? Or my goal as a product developer is to always fill holes that need filling. We've all seen the memes of here's the army, they dig a hole and fill it. Right. We don't want to dig the hole and then sell the snake oil that says, hey, you should fill this hole we dug by paying us. Yeah. We always want to make products that are better. So there's that part. And we think that we're doing a very good job there. The community feedback shows us that we are. Our growth shows us that we are. So that's great. Right? That's just, I think, fundamental. That's one of those, you better be doing this if you're making stuff. You better be making stuff people really want and need. Because otherwise, it just feels fake. So there's that part. And it's odd to consider that the easy part. I think the harder part is to become a brand and a company that is more than your products. And so for us, that means the community aspect, the being involved with the people that want to partake in this creativity with you, the welcoming aspect of bringing new people into this community that you want to share that with. Because like you mentioned, during COVID, it really became apparent to us, because we received countless customer feedback about how much they appreciated our work at keeping people happy when everything seemed to be falling apart. And it set us aback because we're like, what do you mean? And they were like, well, you do your show every day, and it gives me a place to tune in and hang out with friends. And I was like, oh wow, that hit really deep. Yeah. Because for coming up on 8 years, we've been doing this broadcast 5 days a week. And for 5 days a week, we just sit and tell bad jokes and paint stuff and teach people painting techniques. And we repeat ourselves. When you've done it for 8 years, there's nothing new. I mean, there is, but it's the same thing. It's watching me and now our studio artist Jordan paint models all day long, and it's great. But I think it really brought to the forefront the fact that we don't always know what our brand means to our community, and how do you find that out? And so we started listening better, because what we found is we spend a lot of time marketing and finding our voice and how we go outward. But it really taught us that we need to listen. It's like in real life, right? I say real life, like companies are fiction, but it's like in real life, you need to listen as much, if not more, than you speak, because it allows you that reflective time. It allows for that assessment of the world rather than just being reactionary. And so now we get to assess, sounds a little too clinical, but we really get to listen and find out more about our community. And our community says, we rarely have any problems with our products, thank goodness, knock wood, but we listen to their needs, and, we listen to the trends, and we listen to how they're feeling, and we do things that correspond with that. And that makes us a brand that's more sidelong with you rather than you're chasing it or, finding a trend or whatever. We just sit there at the table and paint with our people. Right. That's why we do conventions and all that. So I think for us, it's really that community involvement is I don't know that you could call it a problem. I think if we want to call that a problem, it's that brands don't service their customer enough. Right. Yeah. We talk about how customer service is such abysmal compared to when we were kids. I can remember when you could walk in and talk to the guy that was going to repair the thing that broke. Can you talk to the guy that's going to repair the thing that broke anymore? No. No, it's outsourced. No. Yeah. Well, it's either outsourced or it doesn't even fall under the thing. You get a new one, right? And so we can talk about that. That's the hey boomer conversation, right? But that's a year old. Get on with the new world. But I think that part of the service orientation is to bring something more of value, even if it doesn't have a direct reflection on ROI or baseline revenue immediately. A lot of the things we do, like the stream, our live broadcast happens every day. It makes no money, right? We don't charge people to watch it. It's free. We don't get paid. None of the services that we broadcast on pay us. Well, you get some residual from subscriptions, like on YouTube and Twitch, but it's like $300. It's not even it doesn't pay the internet fee. Sure. We don't do it as a revenue source. We do it as a community outreach program because we are just artists. We're not more because we own a business that makes art supplies. We're just like you. We want to paint. We want to paint with your son and show him, oh, check this out. Have you ever thought about this? Or here's this color red you can use to make Spider-Man pop, and that kind of stuff. That's what really gives us pleasure because we're just nerds painting stuff. Yeah. And at the end of the day, if you lose that love for what you set out to do, then you just become a company that sells toilet paper. Right. And you can sell really good toilet paper and be a billionaire, Right. But you may not like what you're doing. Exactly. And for me, I'm not here for, it's strange to say you're not here for revenue. I'm not here to make bajillions of dollars. I'm here to do what I love. And I think that becomes symbiotic with your customer base. And I think that's kind of the unseen problem that a lot of companies miss. Yeah. So that could be an answer to my next question, which, by the way, man, I have so much to ask you. We could be here. Here all day. All day. But this is my last question, at least for now. There are a lot of entrepreneurs struggling out there, or a lot of people who want to be entrepreneurs, right? What are some advice you could give them so, to encourage or to inspire them just to go do it? Keep doing it. I think that in reality, that's the thing. I think that the balance in life that you have to find to just do it, right? Because that is my mentality. I think Nike nailed it when they said, just do it. You know, the biggest fear is only going to get bigger through procrastination.
Yeah.
Right? Do it. Give it a shot. Even if it's start a free online Shopify account and throw some products on there that you think are great. You know, my mom is a jeweler, and she started it as a hobby, and she's so afraid of, you know, doing like an Etsy store or something. You know, she's in a gallery in Colorado and sells a good amount, and it's fine, but she's never pushed beyond that. You know, she doesn't have what we would call that spark of entrepreneurship in the business side, and she knows it. She's smart enough to talk to herself about it. She doesn't want to be successful in that route because she doesn't want to work that hard. She's very honest. She's like, I don't want to have to make jewelry all day. And I don't want to hire people to make jewelry if we get successful, because then I'm not the one making the jewelry. It's not my jewelry. And I'm like, that's the artist, right? That's the artist speaking. And that's fine. So know that, and find something that you know you can share in the endeavor with should it become successful, and that you can also survive if it's not successful. A lot of people want to jump out, start a business, throw all the money they have at it, and then maybe it doesn't do as well as they thought, and then they're stuck now in a position having to backtrack and scramble and find another job or whatever. And I would say to those people, you know, take it slow. Do it, but measure it. You know, measure it out and say, okay, my target for this month is to get the website up and running. And create your website or create your Etsy store or whatever it is you're trying to do. So it's
one step at a time.
Right. Place your ad in the local paper if you're dog sitting. You know, whatever it is you decide is your passion, take it slow, develop an intro, and understand that nothing happens overnight. The amount of people who actually catch lightning in a bottle is infinitesimally small.
Yes.
It takes a long time to put the lightning in the bottle, you know, and that's okay, right? It's okay.
Yeah.
Everybody has their level that they can enter in. Some have larger capacity for investment right out of the gates. Maybe they're taking success from another venture that they had. Maybe they're taking their 401k from a company they worked for 20 years and wanting to do something on their own. All of those are right. All of those are great. Just measure it at a pace that fits both your lifestyle and your expectations, and vice versa. Because you can, as an entrepreneur, have your expectations set. I don't want to say set too high, because I'm a fan of high expectations. I think set too soon, right? Yeah. Your timeline, more times than not, when I run into new entrepreneurs, people who are just starting out with their businesses, they have an expectation of instant gratification. Right. And it's hard to kind of delay that without also bringing them down. So that's not what I'm trying to do. Sure. I want you to capture your excitement, but keep working your day job. Keep doing the things that are creating your lifestyle for you.
Be realistic.
Yeah, because if you steal your lifestyle and your ability to live the way you're comfortable just to start this task, you raise the risk factor considerably. Yeah, absolutely. It can make it feel ultimately better when you succeed, because you're like, heck yeah, I did this. Yeah. But it can also make it feel really bad. So I think it's that balance and that leveraging, and always being able to, again, look at the person in the mirror and ask yourself, you know, how are we doing? You know, what are we doing? You know, does this feel good? Does this feel right? You know, the chance at $1 million, it does not outweigh the comfort in your life and the restfulness of your mind. Right. Right. Because a lot of people will come knocking on your door the more successful you are and offer you the world, and you got to be real careful of that.
Yeah, 100%. So, Jason, for those who want to learn more about you, about Monument Hobbies, what's the best way to reach you or know more about your product?
MonumentHobbies.com is our website. It's where we sell all our products, but we also have, and on there are links to our live show. Come hang out with our community. You know, if any of this interests you, come hang out with us. We even talk business during our show where we're teaching people how to paint. People will ask me about the beginning of the business and everything. So yeah, you can find us at MonumentHobbies.com and all those links. And we'd love to talk more with you.
Well, Jason, this has been an absolute blessing to have you here in the show. Like I said, I wish we could be talking here a little bit more, but
we wind up with a 12-hour show.
Exactly.
Nobody would listen to. So.
Yeah, but there's a lot of snippets we can splice from that. But No, thanks again for being with us here today, guys. Thanks for listening in. Again, this show was brought to you by GapTech Global. If you're looking for a staff augmentation partner who can help you recruit faster and more affordable, please visit their website at gaptechglobal.com. Again, this is Chris, your host with the show From Zero to Revenue.
Thank you so much for watching this episode of From Zero to Revenue with your host, Chris Yap. If you've enjoyed the show, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We really appreciate that effort. Until next time.